Hi class, so we're about to take another exciting foray into the magical world of descriptive statistics, and for today's module we are going to take a look at measures of central tendency, which probably doesn't sound super exciting, but in reality it's like someone took ice cream and converted it into numeric form. And we're going to talk about three measures of central tendency: the mean, the median, and the mode. In terms of our course learning outcomes, this module is going to tie into your ability to understand and apply fundamental statistical methods. So we're going to start things off with a little food for thought, a little bit of a head scratcher. A few years ago, the government gave everyone a nifty little tax rebate. Now, the New York Times said that on average, American households would save $200. Now, the White House came along and said, no, it's much more than that. You're not going to save 200, and it's not going to be 400 or even 800. You're going to save $1,200 on average. 1,200. Huge discrepancy. And the funny thing is, they were both relying on the same information, using the same data, and technically, somehow, both of them were right. And the key thing is, how could they both be right? And this is where the magic of statistics is going to make us all just a little bit smarter. So it boils down to measures of central tendency. And in general terms, this is an advanced form of numerical description, describing things with numbers. And basically, central tendency looks at three different questions. It asks what is most common, it asks what is average, and it asks what is in the middle. So we'll start with the mode. Now the mode is the most common score in a distribution. All right. Now, if we return to the survey we had a few days ago, I had asked you a bunch of questions, one of which was how much you like If I Was Your Boyfriend by Justin Bieber. And if you've gotten over the trauma induced by that particular experience, maybe you can take a look at the results. Displayed here in a frequency histogram, we can see your actual responses to this question. And I want to know, what is the mode of these data, of this distribution? And your options are 1, 4, 7, 8, and 2. Now, pause your video for a moment if you don't know the answer and want to think about it, because I'm about to give you the answer. All right, so the answer, the mode, is 2. It is the most common score. 8 people gave an answer of 2. That's more than any other response, thus it is the mode. Incidentally, 6 people had this one correct. They said a score of 1, which is the only way to look at this particular song, and 2 people must have suffered some kind of head trauma earlier in the day because they gave it a 7, or maybe they were holding their pieces of paper upside down. All right, so what's the deal with the mode? The upside of the mode is it can be used with any unit of measurement. You can use it with numeric types of measurement, you can use it with nominal types of measurement, and if that sounds like Greek to you, make sure you look at your stats reader to refresh yourself regarding these terms. The downside of the mode is it doesn't use all available data. In fact, it ignores a lot of the data in your distribution. It looks at one particular number and ignores everything to the left and right of it. So what can we do about that? Well, one thing we can do is we can look at the mean. Now, the mean is what is commonly referred to as the average score in a distribution. To give you an example, let's look at the average number of times I banged my head as a child per day. And this happened a lot. My head was roughly the size of a watermelon. And if I started moving pretty quickly in any given direction, the only thing that was going to make me stop was a solid object. And the only thing that that solid object was going to interact with was my noggin. All right? And to give you a better sense of how that worked, here is a dramatic reenactment. So there's me, a little bit rambunctious, lots of energy, looking good, but always ends up the same way. Oh, okay, all right. So what do the data say? In a typical week, I bang my heads 2, 3, 4, 12, that was a bad one, 1, 5, and 3 times. Now, to calculate the mean, as we've seen in the text, you add up all the numbers and then you divide by the number of observations. So we add up 2 plus 3 plus 4 and so on. We're going to get 30. We divide by the number of observations, 7 days, and we wind up with 4.29. So I bang my head an average of 4.29 times per day, or a mean of 4.29 times per day. In fact, it was so bad that my parents often said that they were going to get me a football helmet, and to this day, I do not know whether they were joking, and that might have something to do with the number of times I bang my head per day. Okay, so what's the deal with the mean? Now, the upside is it does use all of the data in your distribution, right? We just saw that all of those numbers are added up and they all contributed to our calculation of the mean, unlike the mode, which just looks at a single number, the most common one. So that's good. The downside of the mean is it can get badly distorted by outliers. Now, you should know what an outlier is because we already talked about it, but let's test your mettle right here with a pop quiz. So in stats terms, what is an outlier? Is it a number that can't be measured? Is it an extreme score? Is it a score that constantly changes? Or is it a person who wears a clown outfit for the fun of it? Again, pause your video. Here comes the answer. An outlier is an extreme score. In other words, an outlier is a score that is much higher or much lower than most of the scores in a distribution, and it causes major problems for the mean. To give you a better sense of that, let's look at something where you often have outliers, home prices. In particular, we can take a look at Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, most homes are going to be about $800,000. For that amount of money, you can get a nice fixer-upper, something along these lines. So there's your average home. Now, of course, in Los Angeles, you're also going to have a handful of these, your $15 to $20 million homes, which are the places where Brad and Jennifer and whoever else got into fights on a regular basis. So if you want to add these up and to bring it home, we'll look at it in the context of Las Vegas, you could run into problems. Let's say we have Vegas home prices in thousands of dollars. So 175 is $175,000. 200 is $200,000. You see those home prices and you see that 12,000, that's actually a $12 million home. Now if we add these up and we calculate the mean, what we're going to get is a little over $1.5 million. The mean tells us that the quote-unquote average home price is $1.5 million. And we can see that that is not right. That is not right. The average price in reality of a home seems to be about $200,000, right? 175, 200, 290, 150, 160, give or take a little bit. The average is about 200, but the mean is very misleading. It tries to tell us that the average price of a home is 1.5 million or just above that, and that's because that outlier is like an anchor that throws it off. So what do we do? Well, there's a lot of ways to deal with this in a sophisticated fashion, but one simple way to deal with it is to use our last measure of central tendency, which is the median. Now, the median simply asks what is in the middle of a sequence of numbers. All right, so if we go to our home prices once again, to calculate the median, all we do is we add them up from lowest to highest. So I go 150, then 160, 175. I took that jumble of home prices and added up from lowest to highest. All right, and to get the median from there, we just pick the one in the middle. And I did this, and there it is. 200,000 is the middle score. So the median tells us that the average home price is $200,000. And you can see that's a much better portrayal of the quote-unquote average home price or the central tendency than the mean, which was $1.5 million. So in this case, the median is better because it was not distorted by that outlier of $12 million. And in general, when you have outliers, you should be very wary of using the mean and much more comfortable with using the median. All right, and finally, to wrap things up and bring it all full circle, we come back to our tax savings, right? New York Times telling us that your rebate's going to be $200 on average. The White House saying that your rebate's going to be $1,200 on average. And you now should be equipped with the knowledge and skills to know how this could have happened. And that's something we will discuss in our next class session. Now, before we get there, I'd like you to chew on a few quiz questions based on the material we just learned. So, the first quiz. What is an upside of the mean? It uses all available data in a distribution of scores. It can be used with any type of data, nominal or numeric. It is not affected by outliers. It tells you which score in a distribution is most common. Again, pause your video. The answer is it uses all available data in a distribution of scores. A. Second quiz question. Let's say we have an experiment where we record reaction times And the data turn out as follows in milliseconds: 127, 83, 111, 156, 134, 989, whoa, and 170. To assess the central tendency of these data, you probably should avoid the blank and use the blank. And you see your different options there. Again, pause your video and the answer will be forthcoming. Okay, so the answer is B. You should avoid the mean and use the median. Why? Well, that 989 is clearly an outlier. It's an extreme score that's going to mess up the mean, and it's going to be okay with the median, so that's the way you go. All right, and now that's all we have for right now, and we will continue to talk about these concepts and additional concepts when we meet again in class.